Welcome to Yarn in the Loop, where I'm discussing AI, product management, career, and life from my perspective as a product and business leader. You can also find my written articles on Substack under itzjanhoffman.substack.com. Hoffman with one F and double N. How to be productive with AI in 2026, personally and professionally. As a naturally curious people person, I like to keep my life interesting and straddle different worlds across my personal and professional life, from product management and strategy to the performing arts and D&D. I thrive off exposure to multiple perspectives, deep philosophical discussions, and respectful debates. AI has been a particularly contentious topic. On the one hand, having joined a new workplace recently, I've been impressed by the AI forward thinking and experimentation everywhere, both when it comes to building AI driven products and also when it comes to leveraging AI to be productive. I'm surrounded by people in functions ranging from product to finance, analytics, and marketing, not just engineering, who live in AI tools and have 10x their productivity. At the same time, I'm friends with self-proclaimed Luddites, skeptics, and people who are genuinely scared of AI. This gives me a unique perspective, and I want to use this as an invitation to a conversation, democratizing the knowledge I have while recognizing that I myself have only uncovered the tip of the iceberg, especially compared to developers who use Claude Code as a heavy workhorse on a daily basis. I will start with the three main players in AI in the West, what makes them different from each other, and why you would pick one over the others in 2026. Hint, don't hesitate to experiment with all three. There is no lock-in. I will then make sense of the latest developments: memory, context, skills, tools, and agents. The goal isn't completeness, but inspiration. If all you care about is practical use cases, I will share my own experiences of how I am speeding up learning, building, and brainstorming. These are just examples, and like everybody else, I keep experimenting, regularly having aha moments about things I had not thought possible, while at the same time becoming aware of the limitations. What matters is having a test and learn mindset. My goal is to keep this post relevant for a broad audience, from beginner to power user. Even if you are a power user, you should still get value and inspiration out of the use cases, and I would love to hear your advice and tips as well. I'm looking to share as much as learn. The lay of the land, the three main players. As it stands today, there are three main players to consider. My selection comes down to market share and my familiarity with them, as they are dominant US players in Western markets like Australia. This is not to discount open source models or Chinese competitors, which I encourage you to explore. Most people will be acquainted with OpenAI's ChatGPT, which kicked off the category with its launch in late 2022. Since then, it has taken the consumer market by storm, while continuing to add new features and capabilities. My personal favorites of how to use ChatGPT today are deep research, the ease with which you can schedule a task, and collaborating with ChatGPT as an omnipresent companion via OpenAI's Atlas browser. I find that ChatGPT also has the most enjoyable voice mode, making a conversation with AI almost feel like one with another human being. Gemini, which is Google's answer to ChatGPT, has come a long way. Initially plagued by a severe case of overpromising and underdelivering, it is now a decent tool with the advantage of plugging in tightly into Google's ecosystem. It's beginning to connect to Google Home. Its image creation and editing capabilities are best in class, and it can now also do music. Like ChatGPT, Gemini has an effective deep research function. Like Notebook LM, another Google AI tool which I will share more on later, Gemini can turn your research into a podcast with two eerily human-sounding podcast hosts, which is great if you are an auditory or mixed learner and you want to be able to listen to a discussion on what you found while you're commuting to work to further stimulate your brain. If you prefer a less conversational option, you can instead opt for a voice briefing. The tool that consumers are less familiar with, but which has had a stellar trajectory in the enterprise, is Anthropic's Claude. There are a range of Claude products. Like ChatGPT and Gemini, you can access it via app and on the web, but it also has a desktop app, a command line interface catering to developers, and newer options like Claude Cowork, which I will discuss further later. Like ChatGPT and Gemini, you can access it via app and on the web, but it also has a desktop app, a command line interface catering to developers, and newer options like Claude Cowork. Claude Code, the command line tool, has been making waves in software engineering, significantly speeding up the product development process and becoming responsible for the majority of code output in many places. But even for consumers, Claude provides a clean, helpful interface and powerful real-life applications. It doesn't have the same deep research or voice capabilities its competitors do. Its superpower lies in its extensibility, external connections, and software building chops. Despite ongoing arguments, in reality, the original use case, using AI as a consultant to answer questions and brainstorm, has been commoditized. All models handle this reasonably well, with minor nuances, and all of them keep improving rapidly. If you've been an AI holdout until now, start with one player. If you've only used ChatGPT, try Claude or Gemini or both and explore their functionality. Where it gets interesting is the latest developments that go far beyond what was possible at the outset of this AI revolution. The real game changer: memory, context, skills, tools, and agents. The initial versions of large language models, LLMs, were a sophisticated version of autocomplete, predicting the next word. They lacked the ability to remember things between conversations, take into account context, and act on your behalf using skills and tools. This has changed, and they are much more powerful now. All the latest versions support memory. You can directly ask Claude or ChatGPT to remember specific facts about you, and it will be able to access this information in other conversations, leading to richer and more custom outcomes. Memory has also become portable. Just follow the instructions that each model provides you to export memory from its competitors and import it into the LLM you are using. For instance, I started on ChatGPT, then my activity shifted to Gemini alongside ChatGPT's historical memory, and eventually I ported it all into Claude. Models have also improved their ability to take into account context, which reduces their chances of hallucinating, that is, making things up. This drives up accuracy. For example, you can attach PDF or text files in your queries to help enrich the answer or search for specific information, or even connect to live docs. The tools also provide you with the ability to work from specific project folders where you can upload files as sources that all of your conversations in that folder should have access to. They all work slightly differently, but to simplify it, Claude and ChatGPT have projects and Gemini has gems. Even more exciting is the ability to use skills. In Claude, these are files that specify exactly how the AI should complete a certain task. For example, you can collaborate with Claude to write a skill file with your input that dictates a consistent output format or process whenever you ask for something. This moves the AI from a general consultant to a highly customizable specialist for repetitive or complex undertakings. Tools represent the AI's ability to tap into other software applications to complete tasks. This can involve plugging into applications like Gmail or Outlook to draft emails, or Slack to retrieve messages. It can be as simple as web search, which didn't exist in the initial LLMs. A key development here is the Model Context Protocol, MCP, a standard developed by Anthropic. The MCP standard has since been adopted across the industry, allowing LLMs to easily communicate with programs that have set up this functionality. These integrations are generally listed as connectors in Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini. The possibilities are endless, though they are currently limited by what external services the models can connect to. For instance, connecting to closed ecosystems like Meta's Messenger, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, or even your phone book to call people directly, remains a game changer waiting to happen. LLMs that combine the power of memory, context, skills, and tools to execute tasks independently, taking multiple self-correcting steps to reach a certain outcome on your behalf, are called agents. Think of it as the difference between asking someone a question and delegating a task. A non-agentic AI answers, an agentic AI goes off and does. A simple example: rather than asking Claude to draft a daily briefing, an agent can check your calendar, scan your inbox, pull relevant news, and deliver you a summary every morning, without you lifting a finger after the initial setup. Some of the use cases I'm going to describe now are already quietly agentic in this way. Fully autonomous agents that operate independently over longer time frames are still maturing for everyday consumer use, but the direction of travel is clear and it's moving fast. At this point, you may be asking, that's all nice and theoretical so far. How does this actually make a difference to my life? Let's jump into a few practical use cases to illustrate. Making AI work for you. Use cases from presentation building to macro tracking. This is not a curated list of what AI can do in theory. These are practical use cases I've personally built up over time to give you some inspiration. The list is by no means exhaustive, and some use cases might resonate immediately while others might feel niche. Yes, there is a T&D initiative tracker. That's fine. You don't have to copy and apply my list as a whole. Just let it spark your own ideas. Before we dive in, a few things to remember. First, these examples barely scratch the surface. I discover new use cases daily, often by accident. Second, the most powerful enhancements tend to involve the tools and connectors we've covered above. Without them, you're getting maybe 30% of the value. And third, if you're just getting started, pick one use case that genuinely excites you or annoys you enough to fix it and start there. Motivation matters more than strategy when you're learning something new. With that, let's get into it. Personal life and work admin and automation. Never forget your gym door code again. If you told me 2 years ago that I'd be asking an AI to help me plan my day, track my macros, and remember my gym door code, I'd have raised an eyebrow or two. Now I can't imagine doing it any other way. I've always loved efficiency in my life. The boring, repetitive, low-stakes stuff is where AI earns its keep the fastest, because the bar is so low and the time savings add up quickly. Memory and general recall is the simplest place to start. Just tell Claude to remember things you keep forgetting: a friend's unit number, your gym door code, your dance studio's access instructions. It sounds trivial, but once you start doing it, you realize how much mental overhead you've been carrying around for no reason. And you can finally stop annoying your friends with the same question over and over again. Daily planning is where connectors are super useful. Once you've connected AI to your calendar and email, you can ask it every morning for a summary of your day. Meetings, outstanding emails that need a response, anything flagged for a follow-up. I've been experimenting with this, and it changes how you start your day, swapping the anxiety of opening your inbox for a calm, prioritized briefing. You can also schedule briefings by asking ChatGPT to send one to you every morning at 8 a.m., or by setting up a schedule in Claude Cowork. Communication and meeting management is the natural extension of that. Drafting responses in Gmail, setting up meetings via calendar, summarizing long Slack threads. All of this becomes possible once the connectors are in place. For meeting notes specifically, tools like Granola are worth a mention. I use it for in-person talks and on-the-go conversations where Zoom's built-in transcription won't cut it. Over the last 6 months, I've become a little obsessed with personal health and fitness, so I had to find a way to simplify nutrition and goal tracking. Anytime I eat out, I take a photo of the restaurant menu, tell Gemini or ChatGPT my remaining macros for the day, and ask AI which dishes give me the best options. Or I photograph a meal and ask for an estimate. It's not perfectly precise, but it's infinitely faster than manually researching everything. As someone who trains regularly and only eats vegan meals, having something that can reason across constraints, high protein, plant-based, under X calories, is extraordinarily helpful. Finally, file and desktop management is emerging as a new AI capability. Most people at work would describe me as organized and structured, but there is a messy side to me that you know if you've seen my apartment or my computer desktop. Moving downloads into the right folders, converting PDFs to text, cleaning up your desktop by project, these are the kinds of tasks that drive clarity but somehow never get done. With Claude Cowork, you can just ask, and it handles such tasks in the background while you do something else. Research and knowledge synthesis, your personal research assistant that never sleeps. How fast can you go from knowing nothing about a topic to being useful in a meeting about it? 6 months ago, I would have said days. Now, I'd say hours, sometimes less. Accelerated learning and onboarding is where I've personally felt the biggest impact. When I joined my latest workplace, I used Claude, the work one, as my always available onboarding companion, feeding it my notes, slide decks, and internal documents so I could ask questions at any time without worrying about bothering colleagues. The trick is to document obsessively from day one. Meeting notes, decisions made, things you've learned. As long as you've connected Claude to Google Drive and Slack, it can search and recall that information later. The more you put in, the more useful it becomes. For learning a completely new topic, Google's Notebook LM is worth calling out specifically. You can upload a collection of documents, articles, reports, textbooks, and it will generate, among others, a podcast-style discussion between two human-sounding hosts that you can listen to on your commute. It's a novel way to absorb information, and one I keep coming back to when I want to understand something deeply rather than just skim it. Deep research and reporting is where ChatGPT and Gemini particularly shine. Their deep research functions can go off for a few minutes, synthesize information from across the web, and come back with a structured report complete with sources. No more spending hours doing web research manually. Gemini has the added bonus of being able to export directly into a Google Doc, which makes it easy to share or build on. I've used this for everything from understanding a new market to getting up to speed on the competitive landscape before an important meeting. Never read a full contract again. You can load in your rental agreement, a job offer, or any contract and ask Claude to summarize your key obligations, flag anything unusual, or answer specific questions without having to read the whole thing yourself. And if you've connected Claude to your Google Drive, you can go even further. Ask it to hunt down your pet's microchip ID, find your vet records, or dig up a Strata application you filed 18 months ago and have no idea where you saved it. Finally, a tip that applies across everything in this section: ask AI how to use AI better. I do this regularly. Claude once suggested I experiment more with artifacts, something I hadn't thought to try, and it opened up a new set of use cases. Any of these tools will happily tell you what you're leaving on the table. Creative and media generation. From blank page to PowerPoint deck and D&D Dragons. Most creative blocks aren't about creativity. They're about the gap between the idea in your head and your ability to execute it. Presentations and structured outputs are where a lot of people have their first "wait, it can do that?" moment. I've always loved presenting and public speaking, but was terrible at lining up boxes in a PowerPoint deck. I was a bright kid, but never had an eye for art. My go-to is Gamma, which can take a rough outline or a wall of notes and turn it into a beautifully designed slide deck in minutes. If you'd rather stay in PowerPoint or just need something quick, Claude can generate a clean PPTX or an HTML presentation directly. What used to take me half a day now takes 20 minutes, most of which is me tweaking rather than building from scratch. Writing and content polishing is probably the use case most people have already stumbled onto, but there's more to it than just fixing grammar. Where I find it most useful is structural. Taking a rough idea and asking AI to help me organize it, tighten the argument, or reframe it for a specific audience. This episode is a good example. I had heaps of notes, but I've used Claude and Gemini throughout to pressure test the structure and smooth out the rough edges. It's also great for converting messy thinking into clean frameworks, tables, comparisons, pros and cons lists, which is something I use constantly in my professional life. Music, images, and media generation is where it gets fun. I've used AI to generate a funeral hymn for a D&D character, RIP James Blade, create character portraits and location images for the campaign, and once I even made a personalized Schlager birthday song for my mom as a joke that I thoroughly enjoyed. D&D and creative project prep deserves its own mention because it's changed how I run my campaign. I use a dedicated Claude project loaded with all my campaign PDFs, session notes, and house rules, which means I can brainstorm encounters, generate NPC names, write flavor text for locations, and even map out branching session flowcharts. All without the risk of Claude hallucinating rules it doesn't actually know. What used to take me hours of prep now takes a fraction of the time, and the sessions are better for it. Personalized career, coaching, and decision support. Career coach, therapist, finance advisor. If the previous sections were about doing things faster, this one is about thinking better. The difference matters. Speed is great, but most of the decisions that have changed my life weren't about speed, they were about clarity. Career strategy and decision support is where I found some of the highest stakes value. Whether it's preparing for a salary negotiation, thinking through a career move, or building out a go-to-market strategy, having something that can rapidly synthesize your situation and pressure test your thinking is powerful. I've used AI to tailor job applications, practice for interviews by feeding it my actual accomplishments, and asking for sample behavioral answers. I've also had AI challenge business ideas before I've said them out loud to anyone. The key is giving it real context. The more specific you are about your situation, the sharper the output. Structured thinking and feedback is where AI becomes your most honest reviewer. I'll drop a half-baked strategy doc or a deck into Claude and ask it to rate the argument out of 10 and tell me exactly what's wrong. That kind of direct, unsentimental feedback is hard to get from colleagues and impossible to get after hours. It's confronting in the best way. AI is also great for emotional support and as a philosophical sounding board. During harder periods, I found it wonderful to have something with endless patience that won't get tired of the conversation. It's not a replacement for a therapist or the people in your life, but as a 24/7 outlet for processing complex thoughts or just talking something through, it's been more valuable than I expected. Personal finance and scenario modeling rounds out the section. Portfolio questions, mortgage scenarios, if I do X, how long until Y? AI can reason across these well. Don't treat it as financial advice, but as a way to structure your thinking and model out possibilities before you talk to someone who is actually qualified. Building and prototyping. Vibe coding your way to something real. This is the section that will feel the most out of reach if you're not a developer. I want to push back on that instinct immediately. The honest truth is that you don't need to know how to code to build something functional anymore. What you need is a clear idea of what you want, some patience for back and forth, and a willingness to tinker. AI does the rest. Custom tool building is the use case that converted me. For my D&D campaign, I needed an initiative tracker, that is, whose turn it is when, the kind of thing that lets me manage combat without shuffling papers mid-session. I could have found a generic one online, signed up for yet another website, and spent 20 minutes figuring out someone else's UI. Instead, I asked Claude to build me one from scratch, leveraging its front-end development skill. The first working prototype was ready in 2 minutes. I built it on the fly during the D&D session as my players were debating next steps. 30 minutes of back and forth later, I had a fully custom tracker published on the web, with a DM view for me to make changes and a player view for the table. And it automatically loaded in the player characters because Claude already knew them from my campaign project. That's not something any off-the-shelf tool would have done. Within a day, I also added an interactive campaign journal and quest log, which until now I had maintained manually in a simple Google Doc. Prototyping ideas is another great use case for your professional life, especially for people working in product management, like myself. Got a product idea you want to visualize, a workflow you want to automate, a dashboard you wish existed at work? You can describe it in plain English and Claude will build you a working prototype. Not a mock-up, an actual thing you can click around in. Platforms like Lovable and Cursor have been built specifically for this kind of vibe coding, but honestly, for most of what I need, Claude artifacts are enough. Let me repeat the point I made in an earlier section. If you get stuck, ask AI how to use AI. Think of it like being able to ask your flat pack IKEA furniture how to assemble itself, and your furniture then explaining what it is doing while it is building itself. That's the level of help available to you now. When I hit a wall building the tracker, I didn't Google the error. I just showed it to Claude and asked what was wrong. It fixed it, explained why, and I learned something in the process. That feedback loop is one of the best ways to level up fast. Be aware of, but not discouraged by, the challenges and limitations. None of what I've described is without friction. Here's what to watch out for. Not to scare you off, but so you go in with realistic expectations. Hallucinations are real. AI models still make things up, confidently and convincingly. This is also where a lot of the productivity drag comes from. You still need to check sources, verify facts, and go back and forth to get things aligned with your vision. The good news is that hallucinations are becoming less common as context improves, and using project folders with your own documents as a source significantly reduces the risk. The app isn't always the full product. The mobile app version of Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini is often less capable than the web or desktop version. Features get released there first, and sometimes never make it to the app at all. Some settings, like adding connectors or using them, might only be available on Web 2. If something isn't working the way you expect, try the web version before assuming it's broken. Side note, some new features also get released on Mac before they make it to PC, like ChatGPT Atlas or Claude Cowork. So if you want to be at the forefront, it might be worth investing in a laptop from Apple. You might feel like the models are getting worse. They're probably not. What's more likely is that your expectations have risen faster than the technology. This is actually a sign you're progressing. You're asking harder questions and noticing the gaps more. It's a good problem to have. Expect a J-curve. As someone from Anthropic put it in a training I recently attended, exploring AI is a J-curve. You will likely become less productive first as you experiment, get confused, hit dead ends, and rebuild your workflows from scratch. That's normal. The payoff comes later, and it's significant. But don't mistake the dip for a reason to quit. Be aware of the lethal trifecta. This one is for the MCP and connector enthusiasts specifically, and I say this as someone who has set up a lot of connectors. Security researcher Simon Willison coined the term to describe a specific risk that emerges when an AI agent combines three things at once: access to your private data, exposure to untrusted content like emails or websites, and the ability to communicate externally. When all three are present, a malicious actor could theoretically trick your AI into reading your private data and sending it somewhere else. Think about it this way. If your AI can read your emails and also browse the web, a malicious website could embed hidden instructions telling it to forward your password reset emails to a stranger. The fix isn't to avoid connectors entirely, but to be thoughtful about which ones you combine and to stick to well-known, reputable integrations. Mindset matters. Approach AI with curiosity, not fear. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this post, it's this. Don't be scared of AI. Be curious about it. I get it. The pace of change is overwhelming and the stakes feel high. But here's the thing, we've been here before. The smartphone felt alien once, so did the internet, so did the personal computer. Each time, the people who leaned in earliest got the most out of it. Not because they were smarter or more technical, but because they were willing to experiment before they had all the answers. AI is no different, except that the learning curve is arguably gentler than any of those predecessors, because you can ask it to teach you as you go. Think of it less as a tool and more as an extension of yourself. A thinking partner that's available at 3 a.m., never gets tired of your questions, and gets more useful the more context you give it. That's not hyperbole, that's just what it feels like once you've been using it long enough. The most important thing is a test and learn mindset. You will get things wrong. Prompts will fall flat, connectors will break, and there will be moments where you wonder if it's worth the friction. That's the J curve doing its thing. Push through it because what's on the other side is worth it. And the frontier keeps moving. As I was writing this, Anthropic just released Claude Dispatch, the ability to control Claude Code and Claude Cowork on your desktop remotely from your phone, as long as your laptop is awake. 6 months ago, that didn't exist. 6 months from now, something else will have shifted again. That's not a reason to feel behind. It's a reason to stay curious. Finally, this post is as much an invitation as it is a guide. I'm still learning too, and some of my favorite insights have come from conversations with people who use these tools completely differently to me. So if something resonated, if something surprised you, or if you found a use case I haven't mentioned, I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment, reply to my Substack, reach out. Let's figure this out together. It's a fun joint learning experience.
Thanks for listening to Yarn in the Loop, where I'm discussing AI, product management, career, and life from my perspective as a product and business leader. You can also find my written articles on Substack under itsjanhoffman.substack.com. Hoffman with one F and double N.